All right then. What's up? Foxtrotting in the Foxhole, Season 10, Episode 27, Number 315. Overall, your faithful host, Ken Harlan, coming to you on a fantastic Friday. TGIF and it. Yeah, buddy. Big Friday night here, a little bit late in the evening after basketball. Wanted to let the basketball game in so I could have an opinion or two on that. As you know, we did some content yesterday. Thank all the new listeners, because we had quite a few people tune into yesterday's Aftershocks. More where that came from. You want to be on the Aftershocks or the impending scene, which is about the reboot, let me know. FTINFX@gmail.com. 541-525-0896. Leave a message. We'd love to hear from you. So what does our faithful host, Ken Harlan, think today? Well, first of all, he's got to give out a shout to Rode, Zoom, Batinzik, SanDisk, the cable makers, all that cool stuff. We're definitely still in the process of reconstructing over here. That's going along quite well. So look forward to seeing some more cool things from FTI and FX Media in the weeks to come. Okay, enough of the pleasantries. Let's get some open face going here. Yeah! Well, I spoke yesterday, and I'll speak about it again today at various points about the media, sports media that is, just turning into the view as far as the personalities are concerned. I think about this whole thing with Stephen A. Smith and Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics, the latest one. Of course, I'm taking Mr. Brown's side. Anytime I take a Celtics point of view, I'm not going to ever roll with Stephen A. Smith. And that's not true either. There are some times, to be honest, where I thought Stephen A. was in the right. Not too often, and I'm here. Once again, as I said yesterday, I'll say it again. Why are you beefing with these guys? If you've got such a brand and you've got all these studios and all these people that you're employed, relish on that as opposed to being so insecure. It's so silly to watch this guy and to think he wants to be president or entertains the idea being this thin skin. You're clearly showing why you never get too far, even as crazy as this Democratic Party may be or not. We don't take sides here. We're just saying. The MAGAs aren't the sanest bunch either, so I'm not going to take sides here. I think they all suck. But this guy thinking he could be president, and I'm sitting here watching him beef. And I'm glad that Mr. Brown said he doesn't know SH with the it. I think more players should stand up, like Jason Whitlock has pointed out about his fraudulent basketball career. And he's not alone with this, where they claim to know a lot of things. See, I know a lot of things, but I don't claim to know everything, and I never act like an authority. Whereas this clown, and others as well, you sit there hearing them speak on crap they have no business speaking on. It's nonsense that somebody probably told them in the production meeting, and otherwise they don't know jack, because they're too busy building their frigging brand. Jeez. Speaking of building brands, you see, Tom Brady walked the runway for this event. I think it was for Gucci. I get it, terrific Tom, TB12. He's, good-looking guy. But I'm kind of with Coach JB and all those guys, man. It's a little too fluid for my liking. I mean, when you're Brady and you're making all that kind of money and doing whatever. I mean, you're truly living your best life. You can get away with this, and you're sitting here laughing all the way as people continue to write ridiculous checks for you. Yes, we understand. But still, that leather getup that he had on, Yeah, a little more fluid than I would like to see for a 6 or 7 time Super Bowl winner. Come on. Come on. Yeah, we got a lot to say about our girl, CC22, everybody's girl, the lightning rod. But we'll save that. But it is interesting that the folks at Indianapolis 500 had the brains to name her the Grand Marshal, in spite of all these conspiracy theories. And none of you people, John the Liquidator, Maurice of Keep the Vision, Ben Daniels, Rachel, none of you want to mention that. All you want to talk about are the conspiracy theories. But we'll get to that when we speak hardwood. I just think it's funny that she's going to be the Grand Marshal and nobody's talking about it. Not a single word. Instead, we're going to focus on conspiracy theories. Got it. How about this whole thing in North Carolina that lit up the internet on the interwebs? The guy who was disqualified, I think it was in the 4x400, cost his team a state meet. He was warned, supposedly, but if you ask the culture, he wasn't warned. Some people said he's doing it for brand recognition because he's good enough to get a scholarship and is going to be okay in that regard. And this is more about building his internet brand. Yeah, people saying, come on, this is a little bit too harsh. I don't know, man. When it comes to all the choreographed stuff, in a world where it is content before everything, I'm kind of with the high school federation here. Like with all these things, like I said yesterday about Sorsby when I went off on that rant. I mean, there was a time and place for it. You don't have the discipline to stay within what the man or the woman in charge is asking, or the group of men and women that make the rules. You can't abide in that little window and have the discipline. Yeah, no tiny violins being played here. Okay. I know it's kind of interesting how ESPN somehow keeps Dan Snyder, his stench alive. Right, we've completely forgotten about this guy, other than the angry Commanders fans. That they have a laundry list of reasons to continue to forever be mad at that guy. We get it. I was over it a long time ago. I think it's interesting though that he still can't move that big estate. I guess the price was $60 million. Now it's $49 million, and they put it back on the market. As he sits back in England with Tanya, drinking his brandy, looking out on the stream, basically just like, they took it away from me. Yeah. I know, this is an interesting one. I was talking with friend of the show, Alec Ford, a couple of days ago. I mean, a lot of major RIPs. But you wouldn't expect this one to get as much attention. And I think other events have kind of muted it. But I know there's been a lot of folks who've been wanting to go back and watch Ezra Edelman or Netflix. Basically the passing of Mark Furman, who has had an aggressive form of cancer. I mean, he didn't look well in that Netflix thing, when I think about it, and I was kind of started watching that again. I was saying to Alec Ford, this little ramble I'm on, isn't it interesting how him and Derek Chauvin, these two guys had no idea they would be the focal point of race relations in the post-civil rights era. I mean, two Jamoke cops, basically. And they end up, being game changers, and having no idea they would step in and do that. And in both cases, the world's not been better because of it. Not gonna, especially in Furman's case. I mean, his is Chauvin, a little bit more scumbaggy that we can really look at, regardless if you thought George Floyd was on fentanyl and that's why he died. That's many different conversations. But this thing with Furman and just the narrative that spun that continues today. Interesting legacy. You know, then he did some interesting stuff as a crime author, became a personality after that. Yeah, he's somebody that always fascinated me because I knew lots of people like him when I lived in LA. I don't know if they were racist, but they definitely had, a lot of bigoted tendencies within them, if you know what I mean. So, anyways, yeah. Some people celebrated, others sent their condolences. There you go. What is this blue dot fever I keep hearing about? Blue dot fever. Looking at the concert maps. Well, gee, of course it's blue dot fever. If the average ticket price, which has gone up 38% apparently since 2019, is $132.62. And I'm guessing this is not going to see Cecil, Queen Bey, Usher, or some headliner. This is probably like some average Joe. I don't know. I'm trying to think some, Lainey Wilson kind of stuff. Okay, and that's no knock on Lainey Wilson. I'm just trying to scale because I'm like going, yeah, 132 average. Well, what are we basing that on? And the truth is, watching the local news, they're talking about gas prices with this war of Iran still going. No ships moving in the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, I'm not surprised that folks are canceling tours or artists are canceling tours because people are looking at their wallets and just kind of saying, especially at these prices, it's a luxury I don't want to partake in. And especially, you never know how lazy people are. It's like, gee, am I going to spend all this money and have an AI generated track all night? All right. We'll be keeping an eye on this trend all summer. Blue dot fever, How about Schlitz? Great commercials during the day. We're not even going to get started when it comes to the master cylinder. Because when you order a beer, do like Smoking Joe. Order... Oh, no, that's a different one, right? But you remember the master cylinder. Anyways, which would knock your you-know-what in the dirt. But yeah, Schlitz, which has been owned by Pabst for a while, they're going to the Davy Jones locker after 177 years. I know, I just saw this great, I don't know, what do they call it? Parody hats, we'll call it. The, Grateful Dead, how you'd always have the parody. It was always cool. And this was an Anchor Steam hat. But it was the Anchor Steam logo was turned into, Grateful Dead signage. It was a cool hat. And I was sitting there thinking, wasn't Anchor Steam supposed to come back? But no, it never did. And it seems like, when they send these breweries that have been dear to us, or just something we cut our teeth on, they stay in the Davy Jones locker. Who knows? Maybe we'll get Seaman back someday. Okay, we'll leave you with this one. I think this is interesting. Along those lines. Back to Blue Dot Fever, I should say. Maybe I got out of order with my bullet points. There's a bill that they're discussing and trying to get through committee in California. Go figure. This bill is going to generate $20 million to keep music festivals in California. However, given the high speed rail debacle, do you really think if they pass this bill and can generate $20 million, I don't know if this is one time, overtime, that it will actually go to keeping music festivals in California? Or will this be another boondoggle? Which if it is, we all need to get in on it so we can get a bag of cash out of it too. You can't make this up, y'all. Yes, we will be tracking this one because I'm really curious. A, if it gets through committee, gets passed on, where is the $20 million coming from and how's it going to be spent? All right, folks. We're ice cold chilling like Kavicha Kvaratskhelia. Just waiting one more week for another big European night. We'll see ya momentarily with the 43K view. Back in a sec. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Kid Harlan here. Yeah, it's a Friday night. Obviously, I must be long in the tooth myself because it's 9:19 and I'm sitting here recording a podcast episode instead of out there creating mayhem on a fabulous Friday. Yeah, well, maybe I just want to avoid the bracelets, which I forgot to say at the end of Aftershocks yesterday, which I was like, darn, that's going to be a first. Won't forget it today, though. Okay. Yeah, it's a Friday night. What we'll do is we'll fly the drones. We won't get the homies and homettes. They're already out doing their thing. So we'll just fly a drone over the University of Oregon and call it in coolest terms of having the high view above the campuses of America this week. With the cost of jet fuel, maybe we just need to take the Gulfstream G650 up a little bit less. The high view above campus coming at you. Well, I spoke about this in Aftershock 045 yesterday. Please check it out. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. But brother needs some help. Get some new watchers. But you all need to like and subscribe to FTINFX Media's YouTube channel. Yes, I spoke yesterday about the NCAAP just being on tilt. And yeah, I've been stewing on this thing now for, I don't know, maybe 48 hours or so, and I still cannot believe. I don't know. Can you really be that tone deaf? Can you really, as a group, be that narcissistic? Man, where would you want these folks to go? They're, especially since you want them to turn down generational wealth. And that would prove exactly what? Oh, wow, because these lawmakers like a Tommy Tuberville who used to coach, well, gee, maybe that'll make me change my policy or my ideology. Wow. I know. It's just crazy to think you can wield that much power, which you don't have. And maybe there are some wackadoos that will fall in line with this nonsense, but come on. In this narcissistic world, British Petroleum on that, honey. All right. There's another one that I really dig that I didn't talk about yesterday. How about the NIL honcho? I forget what the hell his title is. Part of the scenery. He's got some title, but you have the NIL organization that sort of oversees it. What that exactly entails is still kind of a mystery to me and a lot of people. Go figure. He says, y'all don't come at me with your pitchforks and torches. We're living by the rules y'all made up. And I thought, damn, you didn't just do that, but you did. And that might be one of the most profound statements and all of this madness I've heard in the last 6 years since we went to the new normal. We're living by the rules y'all made up. Translation. What has the Foxhole been saying all along? The adults didn't get in the room, didn't come up with some guidelines, guardrails, regulations. a way for this to be done sanely where it wasn't anarchy because everybody was looking out for their own in this narcissistic world. It's all about me, all about my gratification. Homie says, saying, y'all wanted this? What do you say? This is what you want? This is what you get. This is what you want. This is what you get. Somehow I gotta get the license for that so I can always play that whenever I feel like saying it. But I'm like, spot on, brother. Way to go. Calling a spade, as Ben Daniel does all the time on his podcast. Beautiful stuff. And that's where we are in 2026. Good luck. Right. Unknotting this one. And there's all kinds of stuff. We talked about the Sorsby stench yesterday. Not sure how that's going to play out. Then we got, what is this kid's name? I think RJ Lewis Jr. He's another one of these G League players. He's playing the G League. Now all of a sudden thinks, I want to go back to college and get paid that way. I want to be one of the girls and get fat money and compete against the kids and be the big man on the campus. This pro thing isn't working so well for me. Maybe I can get another payday. And let's see here. And where are you at? Oh, you're in Baton Rouge. So I guarantee you'll be able to find the whack-ball judge. At least the judge in Sorsby's case recused himself, but we'll see who they assign the case to next. Yeah, stay tuned to this. Because you've got agents and ambulance chasers coming up with all kinds of wackadoodle schemes, and they're just going to keep throwing at it. It's like the worst. What's the worst thing that can happen? You lose, and the lawyer just gets richer. If you're okay with it, then you have to throw something at the wall and see what happens. Wow. I think this is interesting. I saw this today as I was kind of putting the last bullet points of the outline for this episode. And the NCAA, oh yeah, that NCAA. What is this that they're launching a probe after Dabo made a tampering claim against Ole Miss? This had something to do with linebacker. I think his name is Luke Farrelly. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, man, it's kind of interesting with now Dabo in lane. I wonder, what kind of maneuvering these two jackals are doing as far as, putting the flames to Ole Miss, making sure they can't be a factor in the near future. Stay tuned with that one. Man, I've been watching too much of these Oliver Stone-ites on the internet. Man, it's starting to rub off on me somewhat. Good grief. Speaking of Baton Rouge, I think we mentioned about Eddie O going to be joining Lane in Baton Rouge this fall. Really interesting there because Eddie O won a natty. Great personality. Wonder, it's either going to be a raging success, blow up before the end of the year, or all three can be true in this particular case. Give it to both of them for agreeing to do this, because this is definitely going to make one more interesting element as far as the upcoming college season is concerned. And we were like 100 days away from week 0. How about that? Put that in your pipe and smoke that dispo weed you got for your weekend-long couch sessions. Ooh! And how about Steve Sarkisian? Mr. Sark, throwing all kinds of gasoline on the campfire. And we gotta ask, is this because he's feeling it's now or never with Arch Manning? Or is he starting to feel the heat from all these folks who've been pouring all that money into the program at UTA and asking, where's my natty? And it's probably the latter. People saying, "Where's my natty?" And Sark's getting ahead. It's like saying, "Yo, if I don't deliver, they're gonna come for my head." So I might as well make it clear to everybody: y'all getting paid, but we gotta deliver. Here in town, and I caught a hold of this story late. What's this about Oregon suing former defensive back Dakota Field for breach of contract? Basically, homie reneged, wants to go somewhere else. Oregon said, "Okay, well, give us that $39,000. We need every cent, even if we got Uncle Phil. Just on principle, you need to give us that money," which he hasn't. So this is going to court. And how much more of this are we going to see moving forward? Well, that money was good. It's kind of spent, and I'm not sure, when I'm going to get that check from my next school. So, my people will talk to your people. Another interesting question they asked, I think this was on ESPN.com this week. And basically asked, this is going, to all this NIL, buyout, all this kind of stuff. Is the quarterback competition on campus over? There's times when you have, I can think of times here just in Eugene where you have 3 or 4 good quarterbacks on the roster and they're all competing. But in this day and age when it's just like, well, if I got to compete, hell, what's Utah State got going on? I'm sure I got to be better than somebody they got. And, just this musical chairs. So I wouldn't say the quarterback competition is necessarily over, but it's gotten a lot more strategic especially with the mobility that you can have without having to sit out. There's no penalty of sitting out with the transfer portal. So I just think, it's just more strategic now in terms of what quarterback battle do you really want to fight. A couple of little Cheez-Its on the way out. So now these conferences like the ACC and the SEC, they've agreed on a 9-game conference schedule, which means, just like we are experiencing here with the Civil War, the in-state or, intrastate matchup with the Tar Heels and the Gamecocks is off for the next couple of years because now we have to be strategic with our schedules. This is what you want. This is what you get. This is what you want. This is what you get. And lastly, another Cheez-It from the snack tray. You see that kid, Mark Matthews? Highly touted. He was the U. Other schools wanted him. Anyways, signing day. It's another one of these big theatrical productions. It's a free country. Different generation. TikTok influenced. I get it. But at some point, you all need to get over yourself with this over-the-top nonsense. Yes, it got you clicks. It got all the folks that are, stars of the interwebs as far as sports talk goes, chatting about it. But come on, folks. Stop with this over-the-top bull jive. Come on, y'all. All right, folks. We've got the flapjacks on the griddle just bubbling right now. When we come back, we'll do a little something you should probably know. See you momentarily. Alrighty. like I said, we're having all kinds of fun. Technical difficulties all over the place this week. A lot of crazy stuff going on here. Can't wait to bring it up as this show goes on. We're getting all kinds of information. Yeah, looking forward to the content we got coming out. It's going to be a fun summer in the Foxhole. This we can guarantee. Okay, time for one of our favorite segments of the Foxtrotting and the Foxhole podcast. Something you should probably know! Or things that happened this past week in the world of sports you might want to know or possibly care about. We'll get to that later in a closer look. That's something something I want to reflect on. But we'll start with Mr. Rye. I spoke a little bit about it yesterday. I'll speak a little bit more now about the PGA Open. The PGA Championship. Man, what a wild. That was said yesterday about the no Tiger boost. Best ratings, since 2021. It was a good weekend. You had a mix of perennial contenders with some folks that, unless you watch the tour on a regular basis, which I tend to do, you wouldn't know. And even a few of them, like, yeah, I know who this is. But yeah, it was fun. A lot of folks had an opportunity, which is what you want to see in a major championship as far as viewability goes. There's nobody running away with it. Plenty of people have their opportunities, and it was just good to see this kid just say, oh no, this one's... I think I want that major championship, and I want the Wanamaker Trophy on my resume. So good for you. I don't know. Rory kind of being a little biatch. I get it, kind of up and down. But then again, he showed you during the week how dangerous he could be because he had his chance. It was kind of weird. The second major in a row as far as Scotty is concerned. The live guys, they don't care. Well, Rom played very good, though. I give him that. Rom had his opportunities as well. All in all, very good weekend in Pennsylvania. Over today, it was today, the Byron Nelson. Sue Kim cards a 60. Would have broke 60 if it wasn't for a bogey on 18. Cool stuff there, huh? Yeah. Then we talked about a little bit yesterday about Ronda Rousey and Miss Carano. 17 seconds armbar. 17 seconds. Haven't really been hearing anybody talk too much about that fight. Like I said yesterday, it was more about Conor dropping the announcement than anything about that fight. So I don't know what this means as far as the viability of Netflix trying to take on Paramount Plus in terms of being the major purveyor for MMA. I mean, good grief. It makes you wonder, President, since you're all about staging these great events, your buddies with Dana, how come you couldn't figure out a way to get Ronda on and Conor on the red, white, and blue? Because maybe I was going to say something sarcastic and I caught myself halfway. But yeah, I don't know. It all seems a little bit cooked. I was going to say baked, but that would be too nice. Or air fried. But no, this is really cooked. With that really bad grease that gives you that gut ache. Okay. Oh man, did you see this whole thing with Natalie Decker? If you remember my conversation with the corner man, every time I bring the corner man on and we talk motorsports, I always ask him what's going on with the ladies of the world. There's that wonderful path that was carved by the likes of the Janet Guthries and our girl Danny Bear, Danica Patrick. But this Natalie Decker basically melting down on the radio and, living up to all the stereotypes when it comes to why folks are a little cynical about women's athletics, which is incorrect. But Natalie Decker gave those folks a lot of ammo over the weekend by melting down and basically calling the circus shit and get me the F out of here, basically, is what she was saying. And I was just like, wow, how do we wrap our brain around that? Woo, yeah. That was quite the meltdown. I don't know, is she, done? Or going someplace else? I mean, I don't even know what the story is. I'll have to see if I can get the quarterman on a side channel. I got a lot of things to ask him about as this podcast progresses, as far as all the things that have transpired in motorsports. I'll talk a little bit more in the closer look. Something I should have brought up in a closer look. So, okay, Napoleon Solo takes a Preakness, but that's not the story. Obviously, no Triple Crown on the line, as we've discussed previously, and how that should be remedied, played a major factor. But I even asked that it wasn't even on the network. The networks even bother showing it, because there certainly was no hype. It was barely hype for the Derby itself. It was like the Preakness was almost like, did you go out and have it? Right? Did AI do some OTB thing or something? Man. I mean, Iron Honor was the favorite. This I know, because I did a little bit of homework. But however, right? We talk about moving the needle. The needle didn't even show up to work. The needle went out and drank a bunch of whiskey and said, I'm going to be in bed 2 days for a hangover. And I ain't moving anywhere right now. And that would be the Preakness. Okay. Now here's one to unpack. Because I'm always talking about, when it comes to ratings, and this notion that the books are being cooked. Not just me saying, quite a few people with the way the new system is. And I'm not sure exactly how that works, other than nobody believes anything that is being put out. And when you hear somebody say UFL is drawing bigger than NHL and NBA playoff games, I say, what? Because you look at the stadiums, ain't nobody there. And that means maybe they're watching it on TV because it's time of the year, alternatives. But based on previous years, there's no way this is outdrawing NHL, definitely not NBA playoff games. Unless it's like the Cavaliers, maybe, and the Pistons in some weird window. Now, I know some of the hardcore football junkies are really appreciating this. Because, if you are a football junkie and gotta have it, like an IV, 364, 24/7, this can be compelling TV. I'm keeping an eye on DTR and the Birmingham Stallions. But it ain't all that great as far as compelling television goes. I don't care what you football junkies say. So this idea that they're drawing ratings like that, British Petroleum. But I do like the scorebug thing going on, where they have the announcers underneath the scoreboard, and who's ever speaking lights up so you know who's speaking. Pretty clever. This is another one. I liked how ESPN.com framed this, because they were talking about, the athletes that made the most money in 2025. They were saying, well, despite Canelo Alvarez having the greatest year, he made $170 million in 2025. And I said, say what? You made $175 million last year? For doing what? I mean, I get Soapy Rain lying on her back and titillating people and making $43 million, but you made $175 for absorbing and throwing how many punches? British Petroleum. Speaking of big money, that money, Mr. Mayweather suing his former investment manager for a tune of, well, $175 million. Why? Well, you can imagine. He's a fraud at me. But I have to wonder, is the emperor wearing any clothes when you can be defrauded out of that much money? We're talking $175 million. We're talking you get defrauded out of $150,000, let alone $175 million. Is anybody out there? Yeah. Good grief. I know I love this one. It isn't even out of order. I wonder if Jason Kelsey is somehow tuning into Foxtrotting on the Foxhole or Aftershocks. He comes out and he's speaking what I've been parroting forever about. He's kind of worried about the NFL and the loss of Sunday football because you're too busy trying to get it on every friggin' night. Good for you. And man, these high school kids, as far as track and field is concerned, forget about the full clout chasing in North Carolina. But how about this kid, Dylan Mitchell, running a 9.92? He's a sophomore, crying out loud. A 9.92 100 meters as a sophomore. GTFO, man. Wow. How about this one? Somebody who, a lot of times, to get to sleep, loves to watch mountaineering mishaps in the Himalayas, with Everest, K2, and Nanga Parbat, however you pronounce that. All those great mountains. So if you follow Everest, what a cluster it can be when you get past the Hillary summit and the Hillary step to get to the summit. And I thought this is pretty astounding. Apparently the other day, a record 275 climbers reached the summit in one day. What coordination and everybody just on their game, not suffering from hypoxia and all the other whack-ball shit that can happen to you once you get above 7,000 meters. Cool beans there, man. Hell yeah. All right, folks. Now that was kind of like the warm-up. Got us going. Now we're going to get into some fun stuff. When we come back, we will talk the association. See you in a moment's time. I know. We're having all kinds of fun over here. Yeah. One of those nights. This is why we try to do this in the daytime, because we get to nights, all kinds of weird things happen in the gold mine. Anyway, a lot going on tonight. All kinds of data appearing and having to figure out ways to process it while I'm recording. One of those good problems, as Marlo Stanfield would say. All right, let's get to some hoops. A lot to unpack here with the NBA playoffs and the ongoing nuttiness that is the W. Well, big game there tonight. But let's start with the Mavericks parting with Jason Kidd. I know with Jason Kidd's ethnicity, whatever the case may be. But it was an interesting conversation within the talking heads, the culture, or the community. Nobody felt bad for Jason Kidd because they know that Jason Kidd will be a commodity pretty quickly, given the reputation that he already has as a coach and a player that garnered respect. And so, but it's interesting when someone says, well, he'll just get a job. And I always laugh about that because people are like, well, why does J.J. Redick get a job? Because it goes back to that whole thing about Marshall Faulk kind of crying about, well, I'll never get a job, but someone like a J.J. Redick can get a job in the NBA. And I'm like, it's an interesting point that Marshall Faulk makes, and I think it was kind of shot down a little bit by Whitlock and those folks. But when it comes to, someone like that, I mean, Doc Rivers, you think of all of his shenanigans, and finally Milwaukee's like, I guess we gotta fire him. So I don't really have a lot of pity too often for coaches because they always let on their feet. Even when you see someone like a Mike Malone, or what's the cat that led the Lakers to their title, their bubble title. See, it's like a revolving door. But he had another job not that long. Even Luke Walton got hired again. So, yeah, I just, I hear this idea of, well, there's not a lot of opportunities, and they're always hiring the same guys. It's gotten better, okay? I think it's the Korean Cosell brought up the other day. Back in the day, that same circle of coaches. And maybe, maybe I'm sticking my foot in my mouth. Maybe it's the same as it ever was when it comes to that. All right, let's move on. SGA, MVP, we talked about the narcissist not being happy about the way it was leaked. The conversation I also brought up when people talk about his greatness. It was interesting. So let's put a bow real quick. There's been so much going on with the previous series, because I know we're already 2 games into the next one. That's what happens when you don't do this stuff every day. Let me get, I gotta get first to Ant-Man. Right? Dapping OKC with 8 minutes left, and he caught some slings and arrows from that. About that, I should say. I know people were pissed, but luckily things move on quick, and it's just at the end, Ant-Man really being Ant-Man. He doesn't give a F what you all think in terms of, you're showing out your team. He's like, man, we're a bunch of 2-ball bees with the itch. and we didn't get it done. And so, yeah, it's not the best look, but it is Ant-Man we're talking about. Anthony Edwards. So, I thought it was a whole lot to do about nothing. They ran out of bullets, and what did I say? The Timberwolves need to get some more firepower to help Ant-Man out. They got the D-O-double-G, but, D-O-double-G also needs to have a watchman with a pistol and a couple of sharpshooters every now and then, especially when it becomes winning time. Okay. Man. The San Antonio, Oklahoma City, this is supposed to be the next knockdown. Lakers, Celtics, Cavaliers, Warriors. Right? Trilogy. whatever is beyond that. So far, it's been interesting with Wimby having that generational game, I thought, in Game 1, and OKC showing why they the champs in Games 2 and 3. In Game 3 tonight, where San Antonio, they had like a 17, they started out the game 15-0, they were cruising, and then reality set in. And like I said yesterday on Aftershocks, you all that thought Oklahoma City was cooked after Game 1. Well, how's it looking now? And believe me, the way the series is going, it should be no shock if San Antonio just says, yeah, man, we'll scrap and tie this series, and it goes back to Oklahoma City 2-2. That was interesting, somebody taking a shot at Oklahoma City fans, saying they're pretty plastic. They didn't even really give a shit until last year when they won. I don't think that's true, but I think it's one of those things that bears a little more investigating in terms of what the vibe is truly like when it comes to Oklahoma City fans. Boy, all this talk about flopping, the gatekeepers aren't happy. You see Jay Williams go up on his tirade about how basically Oklahoma City is unwatchable because they are the bee with the itch, two ball that is, in terms of the flopping, and it's annoying to a lot of folks who respect the beauty and integrity of the game. Well, how does the Foxhole feel about all of that talk? Yeah, we're cooking. This segment might go for a minute or two. Well, this is what the Foxhole feels about that. This is the soft pedal era. It's not like it was in the 80s and the 90s when they had a way of having enforcers and taking care of that stuff. Even the little skirmish we saw tonight, it's just like, man, this is like square dancing compared to back in the day. But as the legendary Slim Charles said before taking out Cheese, Wagstaff, and The Wire, way back in the day, MFers. And so I'm not one of these people sitting here like, well, this version of the NBA is soft. It is what it is. This load managing, breathe on me, it's a foul. I'm looking for contact anyway to get calls because the analytics say this is the NBA we're in. So you old heads, while you may have something to bitch and moan about, grab your cerveza and deal with it. Or, gee whiz, don't watch it all. Wow. Okay. On the other side of the equation, yeah, the Pistons crapping the bed in Game 7. I mean, and getting basically prison sexed. Right? Didn't believe in them anyways. Maybe they'll be a threat in the future, but after this, especially with the Cavs. And the Cavs, being the Cavs, I talked about the collapse in the Garden yesterday in the Aftershocks. Then last night, the focus is back on Harden. A lot of conversation today about Harden. Kind of, when I talk about the Peyton Manning analogy, it should be the James Harden, because he is really the regular season champion. No champagne James. I'm not going to call him Little Game James like Shaq calls him. He's no champagne James. He should be, you're great in the regular season and in the playoffs, and Boy, I give these guys credit that come on Wetlock's show. Their knowledge of basketball history is fantastic, bringing up really small, minute details about these series going back to the early 2010s. And the expose they did on Harden, homie got no money when it matters. And too many times you could point out where it's no Champagne James. I mean, right, they sit there and take the bottles. They take the bottle service to the next floor when he gets off the elevator after leaving the strip club. Now, the Knicks commanding 2-0 lead, as we expect at this point. I think people are sleeping on Gotham in terms of their chances against whoever comes out of the West. I give the Knicks more than a puncher's chance. I've been saying that for a while. Gotta love Mindani, though, a true mayor of the people. Instead of being in Celebrity Row, he's up there in the Raptors with the common man. Like or loathe the man. Raise your pint glass for that one, man of the people. Sure, it was a photo op, but whatever. Cool. I'm cool with that. All right. Now, let's get to it. Let's talk some queens of the court, y'all. Like everybody else. All the wackos on the internet. And you think, why do I like talking about it? Because there's so many people who built so many content platforms. Uh-oh. We're going to take a quick break here. All right. Had to take a time out. Got a call from the legendary SJ of SJ Gets Down. Had like a little production idea. But let me get back to what I was about to say. The queens of the court. Oh my days. And that big game tonight with the Indiana Fever and the Golden State Valkyries, where Caitlin Clark balled out. Big win. After yesterday's drama, which I spoke to about aftershocks with the lack of transparency from the league, announcing 90 minutes before the start of the game she wasn't playing. She played tonight, full of sass, and she's even got a technical. Folks in the Valkyrie getting in her face. My God, folks, this is such an amazing story that is going on with this woman in this league. And the narratives, the conspiracies. And when the conspiracies have a weird freaking way of actually coming to fruition, that's where the Foxhole says, damn. Yeah, these guys have created platforms following her, and this crusade where this league success in their minds has to go through her. And it's clear that others say, oh no, this is about us. She just happens to be somebody that's helping us get money. But we ain't making her the focus. This is all true. And when you even don't want to like her, you have to admire her for putting up with this nonsense. You see that tweet their GM put out? The stuff that's going on with Caitlin Clark and the WNBA is diabolical. Now, I ain't a simp like all these weirdos and their platforms. Like I said, this crusade to make it all about her, I'm not completely down with that. I do see the other folks who say, who am I, chopped liver? Especially when you see someone like an Aja Wilson who is absolutely balling and nobody gives us a flying you-know-what. We don't even care about me-bounds. Until me-bounds can start making layups, we don't care. Yeah. But all this other stuff, I mean, she puts out a book, a children's book, and it's got her dunking over two of her black teammates, And the wackos immediately come out saying, see, I told you, this is why I don't like that girl. She ain't one of us. She's one of them. It's a children's book, y'all. What, she's supposed to be subservient to the whacked out mob every second of the day? Because you know her fans, they're having none of it. I think the attendance drop numbers are... they're not as drastic as the doomsayers and the Clark Brigade would like to make it out to be. That's just me, okay? I think it's more of a culmination of what we've been saying, like Blue Dot Fever. There's only so much money to go around, and the thrill that existed when she came into the league a couple of years ago was not quite there. Especially when this league, as I have pointed out many times, is the most unlikable cast of characters you're going to find in any sport. So, I don't know. Lot to chew on. Gonna be a long summer with these crazy queens. The shenanigans have only started, but big win for the Indiana Fever tonight. Because that was about, they had trouble with the Valkyries last year. And they said with Caitlin Clark balling out, all of her followers, they can take a step back off the ledge. But that'll only last until the next game where there'll be this big lead up. Are they going to be transparent with us? Are they going to be truthful with us? Okay, folks. Like I said, we cooked a little bit in that particular segment. Now we're gonna like dial it back a little bit, have a little fun, go pitch side. We'll see you in a moment. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan. Ice cold chillin' like Kavicha Karvachkelia! Ooh. Yeah, that's another week away. Now that we can talk some beautiful game of life. Obviously, Arsenal wrapping up the Premier League with Manchester City's draw. Congratulations to Arsenal for now. Be a different story when they hook up with my PSG next week in Budapest. Looking forward to that. The EPL hype train is in full effect right now. Rather nauseating if you're not an EPL booster. Anyways, that's a week away. Kudos to Aston Villa taking the Europa League, easily dispatching Freiburg. Heck yeah, that's a big thing this week. With all the layoff between the UEFA Champions League, semifinals till you get to the final. At least with Europa, it's already done with. Okay, what else do we got here? We'll kind of blaze through this real quick since we cooked the last segment. This is an interesting one. We're always bitching and moaning about the high cost of being able to watch our favorite sports and getting nickel and dime to death. So this is an interesting one. The honchos at UEFA are mulling plans to offer a free global streaming service that will have all of Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League Oh my expletive days. I don't know what everybody else would say about that in terms of the major provider. It was like, this is not how it's supposed to be done. We're supposed to make money off of this. You ain't supposed to offer the premier competitions for free? Wawa for free? You don't say. I'm telling you, that just warms my heart. If that's actually true, I can't see the powers that be would ever let that happen. But then again, maybe you are making so much damn money that it's like, okay, let the serfs have something. Let the plebes have something, right? Ooh-wee. I kid you not, man. All right. So the rumors are true. Pep is leaving City this summer. He says he wants to take a long break. Kind of become the next Jurgen Klopp. Make cool commercials. Hang out with the beautiful people. And just be the overall badass that he is. More power to you as one of the great managers of this era. What's that song on The Who? Got nothing left to prove. I got nothing left to prove. So good for Pep. I'm sure whatever gig he wants, whether it's an international job or another club level, and no MLS folks, do not start having wet dreams of Pep coming to MLS like Jurgen Klopp coming to the United States men's national team. It ain't happening. A lot of moves going on. Now, where I could see a possible move to MLS, my man Mr. Conte leaving Napoli. He says he's done what he needed to do there, looking for a new challenge. I think if the right MLS club opens up the pocketbook and allows him to chart a vision, maybe you could get him to come stateside, which would be interesting. Another possibility of somebody coming stateside, player-wise, how about Robert Lewandowski, leaving Barcelona? So I'm pretty sure, even though he's a little long in the tooth, this is probably his time to get some of the MLS cash. And I'm sure there is a club out there willing to entertain a conversation with Lewa to bring him to the MLS. Stay tuned for that one. Okay. Speaking of on the way out, City wins the FA Cup. Same day, Chelsea names Xabi Alonso new skipper. United defeats Newcastle to secure third place in the EPL. So, hey, you folks, I'm not hating on the EPL. Giving the EPL all the flowers. Over in MLS, FC Dallas knocks off San Jose. Tough week for San Jose. More of that in a minute. Hudson Valley Derby was 1-1. Caps and Sounders both lose games inexplicably. Miami won, but LAFC lost on the Sunday night showcase. LAFC one win in their last 7 matches, I believe. MDS out, yo. Yeah, I got into some fights on the internet about that. U.S. Open Cup, it's a tough week for San Jose. They get knocked out of the Open Cup. I believe Columbus advances as well. So, yeah. But San Jose, no soup, no dog bones even for you this week. Another person that had a tough week, CR7. Yeah, that's CR7. Mr. Ronaldo. Not only did they lose the AFC 2 crown, the Asian Federation Champions League or whatever it's called, League 2, they lost that, but he also lost out to Saudi Player of the Year to Yao Felix. Yeah. A lot of crazy stuff this past week. Did you see the end of that Celtic Hearts game on Saturday? Then, Celtics won the Scottish Premiership 56 times. And basically, Wilfred Nancy, formerly of Columbus, was their coach at one point. And basically, I talked about this and how he was running the team into the crapper. And somehow, they rallied on the last day to scratch and claw their way to another title. And what a scene it was. Really felt bad for the Hearts players having to deal with that. Another ugly example of, the modern game and the emotions and the passion that come with it. The raw emotion. And it's like, hey, this is their 56th championship. It should be old hat. But when it's like people feel it's your birthright, yeah. All right, here, let's take a quick gander at what else is going on. Let's look at some tables here as we want, especially for the things that are going on. Leagues and cups. Let's take a look at what's going on in the NWSL. Well, it is pretty tight here after 11 match days, with the Portland Thorns having a 1-point advantage over the San Diego Wave. Portland got a big win the other night. Good stuff there. It's good stuff unless you are Boston, Racing Louisville, and the Chicago Stars. 9, 7, and 8 points after 11 matches. As the legendary Stuart Lance would say, that will not get it done. What's going on over in Liga MX? Okay, after 17 match days, interesting race going on over here with Pumas and Chivas. 36 points with Cruz Azul. 3 points behind with 33. And Pachuca at 31. So that's an interesting battle brewing from our friends down south. Looking forward to the All-Star game and Leagues Cup as after we come back from the World Cup. I mean, hey, folks, the World Cup, it's basically here. I mean, this is going to be, the last MLS match before we go to break? So it's on, people. And USA gave some roster drops. I think Diego Luna is out. Is that what I'm seeing? So we'll have more of that when we get to this segment next week as far as prepping for the World Cup. Looking forward to the big gathering next week for Champions League with Sporting Cascades, as they've announced they will be playing at Civic like that. Where else were they going to play? All right, folks. That's what's going on pitch side. When we return, we'll get crackling with some Nightfall of Diamonds. See you in a moment. All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your smiling host, Ken Harlan, coming to you on a fabulous Friday night in the Foxhole. A lot of F's there. Okay, let's do a quick look at the Nightfall of Diamonds, shall we? Well, Dark Star crashes, mirror shatters. Let's start off with the hippie stuff. A somber one. The legendary Ike Willis. If you're familiar with Zappa. And then later, his stints with the Kimockites, or the Kimmock Conspiracy. Beloved by many. Definitely a loss there. Legendary Ike Willis. If you know Brother Ray White, all those cool cats that played with Zappa. Okay, Zappa's not necessarily my jam, but I do have lots of respect for the man and the musicians that he played with. What else we got going on Hippie Land? Biscuits are at Mishawaka. No Streams. J-Rad and Dark Star Orchestra. Still can't believe Dark Star Orchestra making mad loot. But hey, there's no tour. And we know all these heads that could never find it in their hearts to get on the PH bandwagon, even if PH is long in the tooth. I'll go on Billy Strings' tour before I ever listen to those mofos. It is an interesting summer. The first summer without Bob, Captain Phil. Yeah, Mickey and Billy are still around, but come on. Really been interesting listening to the Play Dead stuff from the streaming service. Really digging the Pigpen stuff, high res. Some of the stuff that didn't get the high res treatment the first go around. But the real interesting find, I think, is like that drop of 94 shows. Yes, it's kind of tough to get through, but it is interesting because of where technology was at that point. It's a good listen, at least it was for me, even back in the DAT days. And there are moments in those shows that, I don't know, it's why we kept going. All right, enough of the hippie wagon. Dark Star has to crash at some point, and the mirror does shatter. We don't want 7 years of bad luck with it, though. Let's talk the real Nightfall of Diamonds. Remember last week when I was talking about that cockfighting ring and the two jockeys that were tied to it? Well, now we have Edwin Diaz, their Lieber, the Dodgers acquired from the offseason. Only, like most Dodger pitchers, to get a broken arm and you're on the disabled list. Well, you have been tied to this thing. I know it's a cultural thing, but when does common sense come into play in terms of the things that you should not be doing? It is not rocket science, but yet you all try to make it rocket science. As General Henri says, stop doing stupid shit! Simple as that. Speaking of stupid, SH, Mariners minor leaguer pitcher, Jose Zerpa, handed an 80-game ban for what? PEDs. This is what I've never even seen before. What is it? Stanano Lozo? I haven't even heard of this. Which makes me wonder, because these guys, usually who get nabbed now, tend to be in the minor leagues. Because they haven't figured out how to mask whatever it is they're doing. If you believe they aren't doing it, I got a bridge to sell you, not in Brooklyn, but in Staten Island. Dang. What was this whole thing with Pete Crow Armstrong? This was during rivalry weekend. Cubs and the White Sox having the Windy City Series. We got into a heated exchange with a fan. A lot of that going on this week. He walked it back. I'm guessing he called her a C word or a B word. And credit to him, he did say a lot of these fans need to watch what they say But he didn't need to engage on that level. He needed to be the bigger person and just walk away from it. I appreciate his honesty and, being contrite afterwards, after kind of like saying, yo, oh my goodness. Rivalry Weekend didn't have the pizzazz that it did when they first rolled it out. I was very disappointed in that. Feel that that's a great opportunity for MLB to really kind of lock us in, kind of teach the YouTube crowd some history, and get them revved up, sell more gear, which they probably did. But I just feel it's just an opportunity for MLB to showcase itself, and they didn't necessarily do that. I mean, gee, let's just look at it this way. The A's and Giants played in Sacramento. One of the bigger crowds there was like 12,500, and actually like Fox 40 did a flex. And I'm like, you're doing a flex for getting 12.5. Last time I checked, Sacramento's not necessarily a tiny metro, and you've got people going through the Capitol Corridor to see the A's, especially when it's an A's-Giants rivalry series. Then after that, the real rivalries happened, starting the week. The Dodgers and Padres, yes indeed, which has quickly become one of our favorite rivalries on the West Coast, if not all of MLB, on the field and off the field. Dodgers take 2 out of 3. Once again, every time the little brother down the south thinks they're Lou Perigno, they have to be knocked back down a peg or two. Kudos to the Dodgers as far as that goes. Oh, did I do that? Yeah, I did. And so now we haven't looked at power rankings for a while. I tend to stay away from that until this point. So the latest MLB power rankings go like this. The Braves, after years in the wilderness, we back. And right now they are in the catbird seat. Good for them. The Dodgers are 2. I don't know why, because the Dodgers do what they do. Tampa Bay, now on some more solid footing in terms of their future, rolling at 3, close behind their adversaries, the Yankees. Boston, where are you? Nowhere to be found in this list. And running up the top 5, Milwaukee. Let me look at this, because we had an NL showcase tonight. Last time I checked, it wasn't going good for the Dodgers. Something tells me it did not end up well. In fact, yes, the Dodgers lose at whatever stadium it is. Now that it's not called Miller Field, American Family Stadium, I think it's called. Brewers take game 1, 5-1. Dodgers, you got some work to do, especially after I gave you some flowers a minute ago. Okay, let's hop on the Zamboni, take a ride around the ice rink of life for a brief second, see what's going on in those NHL playoffs. How about this? VJK, the Vegas Golden Knights, kind of shocking the Avs in taking game 1. And then they get a decisive 3-1 win in game 2. And lo and behold, the Vegas Golden Knights have a 2-0 lead on this Avs team that we were thinking, hey, this could be the Avs year. We're always talking about front running. And then, the other side of the bracket, the Canes with the longest layoff since 1919, getting stunned by the Habs. Les Habitants. So a lot of intrigue in the conference semifinals. Stay tuned. All right, folks. We're ice cold chilling like Ivica Kvaratskhelia. We will be back with a closer look on the other side. See you there. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Very late night. Had to sneak off and do a little production meeting with SJ of SJ Gets Down, working on some content on her platform. Glad to help our friends out in the community. Now I can get back to finishing this off. Time for a closer look. Time to opinionate, editorialize, give our takes. So this one's going to be an interesting one. Kind of taken back by this, especially kind of moved by the things I saw today. So I'm sure if you follow this podcast, you know we cover motorsport, and motorsport lost a giant in the sport this week. The passing of Kyle Busch at 41. And yeah, this one kind of hit me hard. And this is another one of those moments where you always look back and you don't want to take life for granted. You don't want to get on one of those kind of rants. This one's interesting, in that same way, because him and Kobe were the same age. Like 41. Kyle's still being active. But the thing is, you grew up watching these guys, right? Him and his brother Kurt. I mean, they both basically got their break when, what was it, Stacy Trickle, Dick Trickle's kid. They're all Vegas boys. Got taken out in that mysterious shooting and that, I think provided the landing strip, for the Bush boys to move into NASCAR. And, you've watched them grow up. Him and his wife, Samantha. Remember how sassy she was from day one. And it was always fun, watching the different teams that he was on. And, what a great driver. Obviously, winning 2 Winston Cup titles. Yeah, just terrible stuff, man. When you go that young, especially at 41, he's one of these guys that we probably expected to drive till he was 60 and has success in multiple circuits. Anyway, yeah, it's, a very somber moment. You saw the tributes today at the Truck Series. They're going to go on all weekend. And I'm sure, as friend of the show, Alec Ford, said, good grief, I hope, Vegas Golden Knights give him some love. He's a big fan there. But yeah, he's a good guy, and not that I actually knew him, but being around the sport and kind of knowing what he meant and talking to the corner man earlier this year and wondering, if he was going to ever win the Daytona 500, because his story was kind of like the Intimidators as far as you did everything else but didn't have that on your jacket. Yeah, I mean, I was watching these guys and today on First Things First, they've been at Indy all week and they were talking, you could see the emotion in people like Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon yesterday, Jr. That major thing. Anyways, our condolences go out to Samantha, Kurt, everybody that's in the NASCAR family. It's been a tough year, obviously, with what happened with Biffle, things like that. So, yeah, another major blow to the NASCAR family. Anyway, let's move on to something more interesting. Let's go back to what I was saying earlier about the whole trajectory that I started yesterday, from the sports reporters to the View. And this is another interesting one with Gilbert Arenas. And this whole thing of, I was watching Marcellus Wiley today. Marcellus Wiley was talking about, Gilbert's another one of these content creators that's got like this multimedia studio. Where someone like Marcellus Wiley was impressed, like, yo, dog, this is in your home. And it's like funny how people like Skip Bayless and Aqib Talib and this whole football-centric nation is kind of making Gilbert irrelevant on his own platform. Something he kind of built as far as being that web version alternative, well, not web version, but web alternative to, Charles, Kenny, Chuck, Shaq. Well, like Charles, Kenny, Shaq, and Ernie. Said Chuck twice. And somehow, him being made irrelevant. And once again, this is more about the weird gossip and all the weird behind the scenes kind of stuff that's going on, which makes me think once again, it's more about the personalities and the weird stuff than the things they should be talking about. Because the only reason journalists and jocks have a platform that have followers is because they're more closely connected than the average content creator like myself is. And I just love how you have all this weird drama. So much to the point where I could talk about it on consecutive days. And lastly, I find this one really amusing. I've brought this up many times on this platform and on the other one. The whole thing down in Anaheim with Artie Moreno. Where it's gotten to a point where the folks in the Orange Curtain have decided they don't want to be polite anymore, and they have started the FTA chants. Use your imagination. Yeah, wait a minute. Do I have it right? No, it's FYA, excuse me. FYA. Basically, F you, Artie. What an optic that must be. I said a while ago, the man should sell the team. Kind of reminds me, as I mentioned Daniel Snyder earlier in the podcast, what he went through. At some point, when do you say uncle? When everybody is just turned on you. And I know it's tough when you're up against the Dodgers. And somewhat the Padres as well, because the Padres have not been wallflowers in this decade. I don't know when you say uncle. Usually it's a moment where the powers that be bring you into the room and just say, come on, man, you're bringing us down. And as I've said many times on this platform before, that when you're in the Orange Curtain and you're up against the Dodgers, when the Dodgers are in BDE, if you know, you really know as far as that goes. And they are right now, more so than they probably ever have been. And what would this be? They're almost 140-year history in existence, as they were founded in 1890 as the Trolley Dodgers, the Supras, the Robins. Yeah, it's just funny we're getting to a point now where there's no decorum, there's no class. As far as the fans, when they're done with you, they say you can't fire an owner, but you sure can get them to a point where they may sour. Who knows? They may be like this guy up in Portland who just says FYMF. I don't know. Time will tell. Anyhow, this is a closer look. A little bit weirder today because the whole thing with Kyle, I still can't get over that. It's just one of those things where it took me like a whole day for that to really sink in. And they said, if you know, you really know what that guy meant to the circuit and motorsports in general. He's going to be severely missed. All right, folks. When we come back, we will do the NFL report and some TMCA time and close out episode 315. We'll be back momentarily. All right. Welcome back to the Foxhole for one more lap. Early Saturday morning. Not quite last call early Saturday morning, but you get the drift of where we are. Adventurous night with the NBA, the NHL, obviously some stuff in MLB as well. Okay, good, great. We're going to start the NFL report with another somber one. The legendary assistant, former player Sherm Lewis passes away. Great stories about him throughout his career. Of course, for me, it'll always be when he was pulled from being the bingo caller to work for the aforementioned Daniel Snyder. Yeah, what a show that was. Anyways, our condolences go out to his family and friends as well. A lot of tough losses this week as far as the sports world is concerned. Okay, we talked about Rodgers and his deal to remain in the Steel City and this being his last dance. Check out Aftershock 045 for that one. Matthew Stafford signs a 1-year, $55 million extension. Probably could do that until he doesn't want, especially playing at this level. Bigger thing is Mina Kimes in her top 10 quarterbacks listed him as 10. Guy was the MVP. Played on some really bad Lions teams. But then again, Mina Kimes had Sam Darnold of her hometown Seahawks at 19. I don't know if this is trying to troll Coach JB or she's so full of herself with her analytics. But Matthew Stafford being number 10 on the list and Mahomes being 1 when he doesn't look washed, there's no reason for Mahomes to be on top of Mahomes Mountain right now. Come on, y'all. What else do we have around the campfire? Jacoby Brissett missing OTAs. I'm like, oh no, you didn't. You don't really believe it's all about you, do you? Because if you do, especially playing for the Cheapskate Cardinals, you are about to be served a harsh reality. Last time I've checked, you are a great journeyman. We can plug you in and play you, but nobody's thinking you're going to win when it really matters. Hate to say it, but sometimes facts are that drug that, I don't know. I was about to say something smart ass, but we'll just walk away from that. How about Shiloh Sanders admitting what we already knew? As he said, sometimes you have to realize there's not a light at the end of the tunnel. Man, that light for you, Mr. Sanders. I think they turned up the lights when you were in Boulder. But because of your name, you were able to get a cup of coffee. But now that you're going to be a content creator and a defender of your dad and your bro, best of luck to you. Nothing wrong with accepting one's reality. And being a part of that family, that's a kudos. Truly, coming from me. Talked about the accelerator problem. Not a problem, jeez. The accelerator program yesterday. Still making some waves. As far as the race baiters and the hustlers. Give it up. As I said yesterday, figure out a way to get in that trajectory. It's not rocket science. It's pretty simple. It's not going to guarantee that you get a good job. But if you're involved in one of these accelerator programs, where opportunities being provided and you're getting the tools, like I said yesterday, we can come back and have a conversation in 2029, 2030. And and maybe we can explore how racist and what we really need to do. We've tried that already, and we'll have to see the results were inconclusive. But I do believe if you are truly committed to giving folks a runway as far as learning the tricks, the tools, the secrets, and ultimately the roadmap to what it will take to be successful as far as entering the coaching or management levels of football. And this is all colors, like I said yesterday. It's very incumbent, on your parents. Hey, if your kid's not going to play on Sundays, but you want to coach on Sundays, funnel them this way. Don't sit there and play the victim if you haven't done the legwork ahead of time. Not rocket science. We've got some coughs here, so bear with me. Urban Meyer. That Urban Meyer. Loses his arbitration hearing. Obviously, he didn't like the way things ended in Jacksonville. Duval! Which, translation, homeboy ain't going to get that extra $20 or $30 million. Well, Urban, you kind of sucked when you were in the No Fun League. Something tells me you are eating ramen and Swanson TV dinners, so you'll just have to be content with whatever purse you're getting from the state of Ohio, Florida, and wherever else you've got some nice deal going. Said you're not eating ramen, not eating Swanson TV dinners, or, those cardboard pizzas that you can get at Safeway or Albertsons or Kroger. You're all right. I get to ask this question again and again. What is with this Andrew Luck gush? Everybody's always going to bring him up. And I sit there and I look at his overall body of work, which isn't bad. But we act like, my God, he was like this incredible talent that could have won 10 rings. He won no rings, just like the guy that was taken after him, RG Me. Maybe a more successful career, but in the end, this continual fawning over Andrew Luck, I don't get. I'm one of these people, you got to deliver to make me shiver. And Andrew Luck didn't do that. And I don't really understand why all these people still speak of him in such glowing terms. Plenty of Greg Cooks out there. And if you know what I say, Greg Cook, if you know, you know. And Andrew Luck's just, to me, another one of those kind of guys that, yeah, you're pretty good, but why are we gushing over you when you really didn't do anything? And that's at college and at the pros, okay? You ain't Caitlin Clark. Oh! Nashville awarded the 2030 Super Bowl. This is going to be interesting because you never know in February what kind of weather you're going to get up in that part of the South. But everybody's getting the love with these fancy new stadiums coming online. Good for them. Also, Minnesota is going to host the 2028 draft. That should be an interesting show with it being in DC coming up in 2027. Looking forward to seeing what those two cities will roll out in terms of creating the ultimate experiences, always topping what somebody did previously. All right. Well, obviously, the trucks rolled up from the foundry a long time ago. So you know, outside of Eagle's Nest, to the stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties, and they be smelly. You know they're quite ripe on this early Saturday morning. You know, the stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties that come in regular, complimentary XL sizes. For those whose deeds during the week earn that distinction, or who we like to say, them being who they be. Who they be this week, let's see. Well, I'm just going to give a regular. This is an XL, because he is kind of a BID, you know the rest. But Rory, come on, man. You were just a prima donna all weekend. You've completed the Grand Slam. You've become immortalized. You don't have to be such a little petulant bitch, okay? You don't have to be like Tiger in that regard. You can be better than that, especially now that you all have entered Valhalla in terms of golf legends. Come on, Rory. Rise above it. Just saunter back to your private jet. Go back to your estate with your lovely wife and your kid. And don't rise above somebody chanting USA. Are you really that thin-skinned, given what you've accomplished, Rory boy? Come on. I'm going to give an XL on this one. Carissa Shields. Stop trying to play the thug life, clout chasing, tough guy. You're a woman, but you're acting like, as General Henri says, the men who do stupid shit. Stop it. Nobody is buying into it. And it's just a total clown show. Complimentaries all around, and an XL for the Hall of Shame. Once again, I have to always point out, thank you folks on the interwebs for posting these clips of these fans who think they can enter the octagon. As I've said ad nauseum, why are you showing up to the ballpark to be on American Gladiator? to do your version of it. Men and women, do we have to like act like everything is ghetto fabulous all the freaking time? No, we don't. Stop it already. I'm going to give it an XL to Max Kellerman. Okay, let me walk through this one. So he compared James Harden to Trump, which to me is Trump has nothing to do with this, and James Harden and Trump are galaxies apart. So why are you going there? And then B, trying to walk it back when you realize this is hurting the audience. There's certain people that will watch the podcast you do with Rich Paul, and there's no need to do this. But if you're going to go there, don't be a B-I-T-C-H and walk it back. Stand your ground and just say, yeah. I mean, you know, you can say what you will about Jamel Thrill Hill, but she didn't walk it back. And she's taking the slings, the mortars, the M1000s. Seriously. Come on, man. If you're going there, don't be soft. Stand your ground. Complimentaries all around, and 2 for the Hall of Shame for this one. All you fools queuing up for this AP Swatch collaboration and putting Ghetto Fabulous on the marquee over a watch that you're going to resell, that others, because they're clout chasing, have to have, are going to pay 4 or 5 times the actual retail value. I don't know. I should just give endless awards for that kind of stupidity. But hey, you do you. Wow. This is a 3-strip for the Hall of Shame and complimentaries all around, which could be converted to XLs if I can identify any of you dumbasses. Basically, all you stupid clout-chasing whores who are sipping for Luigi, and you know when I say Luigi, that Luigi. Really? With all the D out in this world, or P, depending on your persuasion, you're going to simp and have wet dreams for this scumbag. I'm sorry, I'm just like tired of you stupid whores that oh, he's kind of cute when he's a scumbag killer, that somehow I can fix him, or there's something intriguing about it. It just shows how cooked and how broken our society is. I can't say enough negative things about whether it's a man or a woman, whore or a fucking dumbass that's like sipping for these murderers and thinking it's cool and this is helping your brand. When I see stuff like this isn't cooked. This is basically letting something burn in your cast iron pan where you're going to spend 2 days with a chisel. Wow. Okay. This is a 4-strip, 4 XLs. Not quite 5. You know, the 5-strip, the 10 strips rare, but this is a 4-strip. The Lyft driver that faked a vomit photo in an attempt to hustle a family into paying more, because, you know, if you throw up in a Lyft or an Uber or a taxi, they're going to charge you with a cleaning fee for ruining their night. But of using AI to create a photo as a hustle, come on, man. What the fuck is that? Pardon my language. I don't like using the F-bombs. We're trying to clean things up, but come on. We're really stooping that low? Lastly, this is another 4-strip. 4XLs. For the third-party seller on Amazon that sent a family an urn that already has somebody's ashes. That is, what the bloody fucking hell is that all about? You get an urn that already has somebody's ashes, and there's so much to unpack with that one in terms of the trauma that you're causing to so many different parties. Jiminy Christmas. Or Jiminy Crickamus. Yeah. Okay. That's enough of the stainless steel bowls. We have reached the finish line. As always, thanks for putting up with me. We are in the midst of radically revamping how we do things on this platform and the other ones that I host. Also working with SJ Gets Down to help get her platform to a really kick-ass spot. Keep an eye on that because she's really going to pop when she gets back in the flow of that. In the meantime, we've got a lot of cool things going on here. Hang tight. It's only going to get better. I've been saying that for a while, and it's slowly happening. All right. As always, enjoy some good adult beverages. Good food, mainly with the people that matter to you. Forget about all the trolls, clowns, and other weirdos. Let them do their thing, or let them be them. As always, stay safe, stay sane, and damn it, avoid the bracelets whenever you can at all costs. You don't need to be Henry Ruggs, let me tell you. All right, we will be back here soon. We're working on a plan to get our content back to where it needs to be, but we've been helping some folks out. It's all about the community and making all of us stronger by supporting them. So bear with me as we work through the technical difficulties in terms of improving this platform. All right. We'll see you when we see you.